This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, for maybe the last 3 years, we've been hanging on our next guest every tweet to try to figure out what Arizona and Arizona State were going to do, whether they were going to stay in the Pac-12, it was going to implode, or they were going to go to the Big 12. And once again, he set off alarm bells here in the Valley of the Sports, the Valley of the Sun today. John Canzano zooms in from his home studio up in Oregon?
Lair.
There we go.
My lair
the man
in
cave?
the Pacific Northwest. But by the way, it's not all that fancy. It looks good probably from this angle, but I've got my kids' Legos off to the side like everybody else. So you know how it goes. We're winging it all the time. So appreciate you having me.
Well, good to talk to you. Always fun to talk to you. Do you have all the helmets lined up for the new Pac-12? Because according to your Twitter, we got like Washington State, San Diego State, Oregon State, Boise State, Utah State, Fresno State, Colorado State, Gonzaga, and potentially Grand Canyon University.
Well, I like to see that Gonzaga helmet, right? Let's see them bust that out and play some football. But look, it's obvious what the Pac-12 is doing. I mean, they are trying to gather the best available schools that are out there that add value to their media package, that position them as the fifth best conference in the country. Going out and getting the top Mountain West Conference schools. They think they got the top four in that first bite. They came back for Utah State. They didn't get UNLV. They still may be in play for UNLV. We don't know. But, getting Gonzaga into the fold was a big deal. And now you begin to look at it as this great basketball conference. And you look at how many of these teams made the tournament last year, 6 teams in the tournament last year, 6 of these members. Over the last 3 seasons, they've averaged 4.7, almost 5 members over the last 3 seasons that would have got into the tournament. So they're definitely putting together this basketball conference. I am told Grand Canyon is on their list of schools that they want to talk with. I am told that there's mutual interest. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. I don't know if the Pac-12 right now is going to say, hey, we have all the basketball that we need. They definitely need to go out and get football settled up. They need one more football playing school to come into the fold. But I think Grand Canyon's interesting because, we know, and not afraid to take a risk, have huge potential, and probably want to be aligned with Gonzaga. So if you're putting together a basketball conference, GCU is not a bad addition to slide into the conference while you're also doing your football business.
And, we were excited about the West Coast Conference. It seems like GCU might just blow past that. I think they were excited on campus. I talked to some folks over there today about the West Coast Conference, but to think, okay, could this potentially be a possibility, and then having to unwind that from any sort of agreements that are already in place seemed maybe a little daunting. But how much did just going to the NCAA tournament in Spokane last year and getting on that stage kind of lift Grand Canyon University's national profile?
Oh, it was huge. And then the WCC edition, obviously a big development and a big get for Stu Jackson and his conference. And, look, it may be that Grand Canyon sits in the WCC for a while and turns into the Gonzaga of that conference, right? It's not a bad either or proposition for GCU. But if the Pac-12 is inviting, if an invitation comes out of these discussions, I'd have to think that Grand Canyon would be interested in that. But I think just the elevated profile, getting to the tournament, everybody can see the potential of the program. You can see the investment in the program. You can see that GCU gets it in a way that a lot of the public schools don't. And so I think when you start to put together this conference, you ask, who adds value? And I think GCU stepped in front of St. Mary's in that equation for the Pac-12. Now, are they going to the Pac-12? We don't know. But they're on the list, I am told, of schools that the Pac-12 wanted to talk with. And that interest being mutual is interesting to me. Now, Gonzaga coming to the Pac-12, I think that may be enough. You may see the Pac-12 just stop there from a basketball standpoint. But if I'm GCU, I would be eyes open, hand raised, standing on the corner if the Pac-12 comes, because I think that basketball conference is going to be formidable.
Well, and it's been kind of a long weekend here in the Valley of the Sports, as we like to call it. Our football team got blown out. Our baseball team finished one game out of going to the playoffs. Our basketball team and our WNBA team had disappointing losses in the playoffs. So this was kind of like, oh, this is kind of new and exciting here. How attractive is a market, do you feel like, Phoenix, Arizona, and the Valley of the Sun here, when it comes to just nationally how much this place is growing and how much sports we have going on here?
Well, look, the Big 12 wouldn't have wanted Arizona State had that market not been worth the damn. It's driving all of expansion football is the primary driver. But basketball, what I'm hearing and seeing from schools and conferences and TV networks is that they're saying that there's more upside available in basketball. And so when you combine the available upside and the potential for the growing NCAA tournament to capture more revenue, for have those units be worth more money, and then you throw in the Phoenix TV market, you're bringing a lot of, you're bringing a lot of TVs and a lot of eyeballs to the equation. One of the things the Pac-12's talked about doing that's really interesting from a basketball standpoint is, they're talking about being creative with how they sell their media rights. Is it possible that the conference tournament, which looks like it would be a lights out tournament at this point, is it possible that tournament goes back to Vegas and the media rights for that tournament become part of a bigger deal, or maybe are sold off as a a la carte offering? I think there's a lot of options there, but I think that Phoenix TV market was a big loss when ASU and Arizona both go off to the Big 12. I think the Pac-12 would love to replace that divot, among others. But, they're on their way. I got to give them credit. Everyone said, hey, the brand, leave the brand behind. The conference is dead. They refused to die. And now they're resurrecting this thing. And from the ashes, all of a sudden they got Gonzaga. So you got to kind of pay attention to what they're doing and maybe what their plan might be.
And last question here, because I know you are a man in high demand today. When it comes to just the former members of the Pac-10, Pac-12 who have gone off to greener pastures, are you hearing anything about the pastures might not be so green? I have heard from multiple folks, maybe the lower tier sports, baseball, things like that think at some point there could be a reconciliation with some of the Pac-12 down the road. Is that a thing at all to maybe keep an eye on in the next, even say like 10 years?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think we all kind of suspect that football will split off. And then it just doesn't make sense to have all these athletes in these Olympic sports, flying all around the country. Just to use the football program as an example, Washington's football team plays at Rutgers last Friday. They got home after 4 a.m. after that trip. That's a football team flying charter. When's the baseball team getting home? When is the track and field? When are the basketball players on the women's basketball team getting home? When's volleyball coming home? Softball. I think they're going to be sitting in a lot of airports. I think the travel is going to be substantial. I think it just makes sense to get back to regional matchups. It's what I like about what the Pac-12's tried to do to this point. Yes, they flirted with Memphis and Tulane and South Florida, but this is a regional conference that's got its foothold in the western part of the United States. Keep an eye on that. I do hear from coaches even at Oregon and Washington and places that should be really happy. I do hear some belly aching from coaches who are saying, all right, it's great. The money's going to be great, but they're not looking forward to like playing games in the winter in places that are a lot colder than the Pacific time zone and the mountain time zone. So keep an eye on all of that. I do think eventually sanity will prevail. David Shaw told me this, Stanford coach. He says, geography is a force of nature. He said geography will prevail. And I keep coming back to that. I think eventually you will see Arizona's baseball team playing against teams in the western part of the United States, as they always should. And so same for Arizona State. But right now, at least between now and maybe like about 2031, I think this is going to be what it is. The Pac-12 is offering a 5-year grant of rights. And, the Pac-12, there's an honesty about what they're doing. They're looking at each other going, hey, this is a 5-year thing. We don't know what's going to happen beyond that. But keep an eye on Grand Canyon. I think if the Pac-12's got an appetite for another basketball program, Grand Canyon would be on their short list.
Well, we look forward to your next trip to the Valley. And until then, we will be hanging on your every tweet. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, man. Take care.
This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.